Okay, so first question, can you introduce yourself and then can you tell us the story of Blackout Theatre Company?
Yes, I'm David Baxter. I'm the self-styled artistic director of Blackout Theatre Company, based here at the place in Bedford, just as a fan comes on from the cooler behind the bar here. Blackout started a good few years ago. A friend of mine, Kathy Frost, and I decided to set up an independent company, basically looking at ways of raising money for charities. That was our original kind of remit, which we did quite successfully. We worked with Mencap locally and in Lanzarote, producing plays which were an alternative really to people actually putting on sponsored walks and jumble sales and things. We thought, well, put on a show and give some support in terms of publicity and things, and we'll see if we can raise some money for you. So we did that for a couple of years. Went to abeyance for a little while. Then a couple of years ago I met a guy in Edinburgh at the Fringe from Kansas City, and we got talking and decided to do a little kind of exchange visit. So I kind of revamped Blackout on that basis, and we've worked fairly successfully for the last couple of years with our friends over in the States, and we're running a couple of shows in Bedfringe at the moment, one of which we hope to take to Edinburgh next year, and we're intending, hopefully, touch wood, that our second show, Contractions, may go to the Kansas City Fringe next year as well. That's the plan.
Okay, can you tell us what's your process for finding shows for Blackout?
Shows is very interesting. I start with a kind of idea of people that I might like to work with. Contractions, for example, I decided fairly early on that I was looking to do a two-hander with two women. The last few things I've done have been fairly small two-handers, mainly men. So I thought, well, let's try and see if I can find a play that would be great for two women. And I came across through the good people at Nick Hearn Books a play called Contractions by Mike Bartlett that was on at the Royal Court a couple of years ago. And I read it and it blew me away completely. It's a fantastically dark piece. Very funny, but very, very black. It's one of those places, a bit like a couple of years ago, I directed a play called The Pillow Man by Martin McDonough. I felt the same way about this as I did when I read that for the first time. It's one of those things that just makes you smile, laugh, and shudder all at the same time. That's kind of how I work. I look for something that I want to do based around the people that I have available, and I go out and find something, basically. It seems to have worked so far, touch wood, and we want to keep that going, really.
Excellent. Where does Bedfringe, for you, where does Bedfringe sit in the wider scheme of things in terms of fringe theatre in the UK?
Well, I think Bedfringe is really important. It's apparently, I was told the other day, it's the third biggest arts and theatre festival in the country, after Edinburgh and Brighton, I think. Having experienced Edinburgh the last few years, I think it's one of those amazing experiences for not only performers but also for the audiences. And I think to have a concentration of fantastic shows in a relatively small space means that you can go and see a lot of things that otherwise you might not normally go and see. A couple of experiences in Edinburgh recently, that I've seen some things that I would probably not have gone to see had it not been on the doorstep. And I think the same thing with Bedfringe. I think there's a lot of stuff coming up over the next couple of weeks that people will find amazing, and it's just a case of getting out there. It's very cheap. Tickets are between sort of £5 and £10. You can't buy a round for that in a pub these days. So instead of doing that for a couple of hours, come down and see a show. What have you got to lose? There's an awful lot of talent that's coming to the place, and to Bedford School Theatre and the Ent Shed and all these kind of places around Bedford, and we need to support that and get that sort of vibe going where people do think, well, actually that's the sort of place I'd like to go to. That's worth taking a couple of days trip into Bedford, going and seeing some shows, and just supporting the arts, particularly locally. I think it's really important that we do that, and that's where Bedfringe sits within that. It's one of those great opportunities. The way it sits just before Edinburgh, there's a lot of Edinburgh previews in Bedfringe this year, and I think it's something like 26. So if you don't get the chance to go to Edinburgh, now is your chance to come see something that's going to be going up there. A lot of the stuff I've seen on the programme was in Edinburgh last year or is going this year, and I think it's important that Bedfringe is fitting into that little niche really of filling a hole for particularly people that want to take stuff up there and get it previewed and get it up to speed. And Bedfringe is an ideal opportunity for performers to do that.
Excellent. Now, what are you looking forward most to seeing at Bedfringe?
Wow. The thing I've really got I've got a couple of things really. A few I've bought tickets for already. A friend of ours, Rebecca Vaughan, is doing a brand new play which she's written, directed by Guy Masterson. It's called Female Gothic, which is on the 23rd, I believe, 23rd of July. That's going to be fantastic. People that don't know Bex, she's done a lot of work with Austen's Women recently. I, Elizabeth, The Diaries of Adam and Eve. She's one of the performers that come with us to the States every year, so we do know her quite well. Some fantastic other shows coming up. I'm really looking forward to seeing the Ouse Valley Singles Club again. They're a great band, very funny, very talented. If you want to go and see some comedy skiffle, and who wouldn't? Let's face it. Pip Hutton, one of the doyens of one-man theatre, is coming, doing The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which I saw in Edinburgh last year. It's an absolutely fantastic show. A lot of local stuff going on as well. Some fairly new companies. I think there's some stuff going on with Bonnie and Clyde, which is a great show, a two-hander about the story of Bonnie and Clyde, which people may be familiar with from the Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty film, but this is a whole different take on it. It's much darker and much more kind of moving in some ways, really. There's all that sort of stuff going on. There's The Beast Within, a fantastic new play which I'm really looking forward to, and there's a whole range of stuff. It's very difficult to kind of pin down to anything, but there's this whole wodge of really, really talented people coming up to Bedford, and it's worth just getting one of the fringe brochures and seeing what you fancy. And sometimes what you don't fancy, because you never know what you're going to find. You might come across something that's great, and that's the joy of it, really, is that it's just take a plunge into it, and you know, as I said, you know, five quid, 10 quid, you know, do that rather than spend an hour in the pub having a drink. They're all quite short shows, so go and have a drink afterwards.
Lovely. Thank you.